Mark Davis wants a star in Vegas. I don't necessarily believe Antonio Pierce is, we would all put him in a category of star.
If they do not go with AP.
I'm gonna have to, consider everything. Honestly, nothing's off the table.
That Maxx Crosby, the all-pro pass rusher, expected to explore a trade request if they do not hire Pierce.
Ladies and gentlemen, Raiders star edge rusher Maxx Crosby just did something that nobody saw coming. I'm going to break down two possible explanations as to why this is happening right now. To be honest, I'm a little skeptical about what's going on. The Raiders owner Mark Davis is going through his head coach and general manager search right now after firing head coach Josh McDaniels and general manager Dave Ziegler in the middle of the 2023 season. Interim head coach Antonio Pierce gave the Raiders a spark mid-season, but Mark Davis must go through a thorough interview process before making any final decision. What is odd is that the Raiders right now have not scheduled any head coaching interviews. They have not submitted an interview request for any head coaching candidate at all. This is quite odd because they have to go through these interviews no matter what. But part of the reason why they are doing this is because Mark Davis wants the next general manager to have input as to who's going to be the next head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. Right now, they have a scheduled interview with interim GM Champ Kelly. This is the guy who made the decision to appoint the linebacker coach Antonio Pierce with less than 2 years of NFL head coaching experience to interim head coach. In addition to Kelly, the Raiders will interview Trey Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals, Kelly Klein Van Callaghan of the Denver Broncos, Tom Telesco, the former GM of the Chargers, Terrence Gray with the Buffalo Bills, and Ed Dodds of the Indianapolis Colts. This guy has some connections to Jim Harbaugh, and many people believe that hiring Ed Dodds may necessitate a Jim Harbaugh hiring. The Raiders, however, will have some competition for interim GM Champ Kelly, the guy who hired Antonio Pierce, as Kelly is interviewing with the Carolina Panthers right now to be their general manager, and according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, his interview went overtime and appears to have made a big impression in both Carolina and Las Vegas. The Raiders are also having competition for Antonio Pierce, as Antonio Pierce is interviewing with the Tennessee Titans.
Really interesting for the Raiders to deal with this, and I would say if he's going to be their guy, should probably do it sooner rather than later.
Reports have indicated that this is a remote interview, so who knows how serious both sides are about working together. Nonetheless, Vegas does have some competition. The Raiders will also have some competition for defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. The AFC West division rival Chargers requested an interview for Patrick Graham for the head coaching position. Since then, there has been another team that has tried to request an interview with Patrick Graham for a defensive coordinator position, a lateral move, but the Raiders blocked it. The Raiders are going to let their new head coach make decisions on the current staff, and they're only able to block Graham for interviewing for lateral moves. They cannot block it if a team like the Chargers is trying to interview Graham for a head coaching position. Some people credit Antonio Pierce's leadership and the freedom he's giving players as to why the defense improved in the second half of the season under Patrick Graham. But it seems like many people around the league credit Patrick Graham with the success of the defense. This is a defense that has been absolutely balling out as of late, and Graham does deserve some credit because he does call the plays. He is the defensive coordinator. So if the Raiders continue without Patrick Graham, one has to wonder, will the defense be the same? Maxx Crosby has been through this coaching rodeo before. In 2021, when John Gruden was forced to resign by the NFL, the Raiders reached the playoffs with interim head coach Rich Bisaccia, and Maxx Crosby was stumping for the guy, saying he wants him to be the full-time head coach in 2022.
Rich is one of a kind. Everybody's been asking what's going to happen, and everybody knows my vote. And I made that very clear. I love Rich. I think he's the best man for the job, and he's come in and done such an amazing job. We've won 10 games with a team that's had tragedy, loss, everything you can imagine.
But instead, the Raiders would hire Josh McDaniels as the head coach. And even though the Raiders locker room appears so much better now that McDaniels is gone, at the time, players like Maxx Crosby were stumping for Josh McDaniels too. And even this past season in 2023 went as far as to claim that he has not lost the locker room and he's a great head coach.
Yeah, I think Coach McDaniels done a hell of a job, and guys love him, and he's the same guy every day. And that's, I can say it a million times. I think Coach McDaniels has done an awesome job. Obviously, like you said, you can read all the headlines and the negativity and things like that.
But now, ever since Josh McDaniels has been fired, Crosby has pretty much acknowledged that McDaniels was a problem in subtle ways, mainly through his praise of Antonio Pierce.
Like I said, we have something special brewing. We love what AP does. We love what, our defensive staff, everybody, involved. And we've changed this whole team around in a short time. So I don't know why you would mess that up.
I've said that 100 times. Why wouldn't we, keep going in the direction we're going,
The argument for Antonio Pierce is that he brought the locker room together. He's a quote-unquote leader of men and able to encourage people to perform at a higher level, similar to Dan Campbell. But with less than 2 years of NFL head coaching experience, way less than somebody like Rich Bisaccia, who had coached at the NFL level, albeit on special teams, for almost 20 years. And you also have a rock star free agent head coaching class right now, with Bill Belichick being fired, Mike Vrabel being fired, Pete Carroll open to coaching opportunities, and also Jim Harbaugh, who, according to NFL insiders, the Raiders are interested in. But things have taken a sudden turn with Maxx Crosby. He is getting vocal, and he has said something that I cannot believe he said. It all started January 12th with a hashtag, something that he was trying to get trending on social media, which was hashtag hire AP. NFL insider Ian Rappaport commented on this and said that from what he's being told, Maxx Crosby is drawing a line in the sand regarding the Raiders' next head coach. Then you had Adam Schefter saying that Antonio Pierce has emerged as the leading candidate to become the full-time head coach in Las Vegas, with support from key players there like Maxx Crosby. And one source said, due to the pressure by players in the locker room like Crosby, they would be blown away if Antonio Pierce wasn't the pick. Then things started getting to the next level where Maxx Crosby, according to Ian Rappaport, according to the top NFL insiders, this is real, this is legit, he will request a trade if Antonio Pierce is not the head coach.
That Maxx Crosby, the all-pro pass rusher, expected to explore a trade request if they do not hire Pierce.
This guy is now making demands to Mark Davis that he hire the interim head coach as the full-time guy. Ian Rappaport is confirming that it's been communicated to the Raiders owner that the players are united around Pierce, and if someone other than Antonio Pierce is the choice, Crosby's trade request would have wide-ranging ramifications. Vic Tafer of The Athletic confirming that all options are on the table. Crosby is doubling down in his support of Antonio Pierce. I believe there are two possible explanations as to why this is happening right now. First is the basic takeaway that I think everybody is coming away with. Maxx Crosby must really believe that running it back with Antonio Pierce with a lot of this same roster, even if Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator, is not there, he must really believe it will be successful. And he also must really believe that if he puts enough pressure on Mark Davis demanding a trade if he doesn't get his way, he must believe that this tactic will actually work against Mark Davis. That is the first basic takeaway that you can come away. The players really believe in Pierce. They really believe they'll be successful if they run it back with him, and Crosby believes the threat will work. There is also a second possible explanation as to why this is happening right now. And I will admit it's a little more cynical, but I think it's legit. Technically, in his 5 seasons with the Raiders, Maxx Crosby has had 2 head coaches so far, John Gruden and Josh McDaniels. Yes, he's had 2 interims in that time, Rich Bisaccia and Antonio Pierce, but he's basically only had 2 head coaches, and in his 6th season next year, he will have had his 3rd head coach. And I know the turnover sucks, but if the Raiders do not hire Antonio Pierce and he demands a trade like he says he's going to do, then he's going to have a 3rd new head coach anyways, even if he leaves the Raiders. So I understand that this guy wants Antonio Pierce, but to me it doesn't really make sense that you're threatening to leave the Raiders, because if you leave the Raiders, you're going to have a different head coach other than Antonio Pierce anyways. It makes me wonder, is this really about Antonio Pierce? Why would Maxx Crosby be going out of his way to say this? Does he know that the decision has already been decided by Mark Davis? And if he knows that Mark Davis is already not going to hire Antonio Pierce, perhaps he's trying to get an early start on being on the trade market. Is this really about Antonio Pierce, or is Maxx Crosby just trying to find a way to get off the Las Vegas Raiders, and this is the perfect excuse? You didn't hire the head coach who won the locker room, So now I'm demanding a trade, and this is the reason, not just because I'm trying to leave and go to a new team. When you hear Maxx Crosby's interviews, he's mainly concerned about the fact that the Raiders have not been regularly making the playoffs as of late. He says he wants to play in the biggest games out there.
I want to be in the playoffs consistently. I want to win. I want to be in the biggest games. I don't know what, I don't have full control about my whole situation. I'm going to keep doing what I do.
So I would not be surprised if there's more to the story, if this doesn't really have much to do with Antonio Pierce, if he knows Mark Davis's mind is already made up, and now he's trying to use this situation as leverage to push a trade and still look popular in front of the fans. Oh, I'm not demanding a trade because I want to mix it up. I want to go to a playoff caliber team. I'm demanding a trade because I didn't get the guy who won the locker room. Hopefully he's trolling with this demanding a trade request, and maybe he knows that Mark Davis has already made the decision on hiring Antonio Pierce. You hear Schefter speaking positively about the prospect of Pierce being the next head coach of the Raiders, and you also have the fact that the Raiders have not interviewed many head coaching candidates yet. Maybe it's because they already have their mind made up. I think if people find out that you have your mind made up, you're required to do some interviews anyways. It might be hard to get people to sign up for interviews that they know are bullshit. Maxx Crosby is 26 years old, in his prime. This would be a nightmare if he was traded away from the Las Vegas Raiders, but the Raiders would be able to get a lot for this guy, and his contract is not entirely untradeable. If the Raiders traded him before June 1st, they would eat $15 million in dead money, freeing up $9 million in cap space, but you're paying $15 million in 2024 against the cap for the guy no matter what. But if the Raiders traded him after June 1st, and we know this happens a lot, they would only eat $5 million in 2024, eat the remaining $10 million in 2025, and free up $19 million in cap space for 2024. If you were going to rebuild, this would not be crazy, and this is totally doable. But obviously Raiders fans want Maxx Crosby on the team. He's the best pass rusher in the NFL. But if you're out there making demands of the owner, saying if you don't give me the coach I want, then I'm out of here, then maybe you don't want to be in the building anyway. And if the owner does hire the head coach that you want, you better hope it's successful, because you've already publicly put pressure on your owner. And if he gives you the coach that you want, you're going to really need to hope and believe that on a yearly basis, Antonio Pierce can outduel Andy Reid, outduel Sean Payton, and possibly outduel Jim Harbaugh, who will likely be the Chargers head coach if the Raiders don't compete and take him away. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Was this a good strategy by Maxx Crosby? Is he right to do this? Is he making the right decision? Will it work out? If you are still watching at this point in the video, man, we really appreciate you. Even though you might find me annoying, even though you might disagree with some of my explanations out there, we still appreciate the fact that you're coming by, watching all the way till the very end. Only the real ones do that. So make sure you subscribe to this channel if you want more content from me, Wi-Fi Willie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.